This is the newsroom for Wednesday, May 19, 2021. We're broadcasting to you on E1, Scar TV, NTN, and Tarsi TV in Bartica. In the headlines, evacuation of residents is underway as flooding in Region 9 worsens.
They have to go to safety areas now because the water keeps rising.
5 former senior policemen are accused of defrauding the state of $10 million. Guyana tops the Caribbean in C2nd Cape. The Ministry of Agriculture signs almost $1 billion in contracts. And in sport, Cricket West Indies Vice President Dr. Kishore Shallow says they are looking at options to improve the selection criteria for international retainer contracts. With the news, I'm Fariza Hanif. We're glad you can join us. We start off by telling you that the death toll for the month of May has increased to 50 following the deaths of 4 men who were infected with COVID-19, according to the Ministry of Health. The latest fatalities are a 37-year-old man from Region 10 who died on May 18th, a 50-year-old and a 73-year-old man, both from Region 4, who died on May 18th and 17th respectively, and a 54-year-old man from Region 6 who died on May 16th. According to the Ministry of Health, the patients were all admitted with COVID-19-like symptoms, but died while receiving care at a medical institution. COVID samples were taken at the time of admission, and those samples subsequently showed that the men were COVID-19 positive. The overall death toll since March 2020 is now 349. Additionally, Guyana on Wednesday recorded 153 new cases, taking the overall number of known cases to 15,607. Evacuation efforts have begun in Lethem, the capital town of Region 9, Upper Takutu, Upper Essequibo, as residents' homes are flooding following an increase in floodwaters flowing from the Amazon in Brazil that was exacerbated by torrential rains on Tuesday. Vashani Ragobir tells us more.
On Wednesday morning, Regional Chairman Brian Allicock highlighted that a number of residents in Lethem were being evacuated to higher ground since their homes had become inundated with floodwaters since Tuesday afternoon. On Wednesday afternoon, while evacuations were still ongoing, Allicock again spoke to the newsroom, stating that the inclement weather has been impeding relief efforts.
We have already started distributing the food supplies to the different things, and we have had an unfortunate situation. The plane couldn't touch down in Mascanari, so they're back here.
Okay.
Right? So it's not like you jump in a car and traveling on the coast.
Right. Okay.
This is savanna terrains and so roughness. So we got to make sure that we get everything in the lorries before we send them off. So one is now leaving for Deep South, right? So with part of the we supply for foods and so that CDC brought in. We have 2 more trucks on the road. They can't cross a certain creek at the moment because it's high. So as soon as the water recedes, they'll be on their way back into the region, right? So that is the situation with us here.
Meanwhile, residents in other parts of Region 9 are also being affected by the increase in floodwaters.
As you can see what is happening here, especially those who are living in low areas have to be on the alert. They have to go to safety areas now because the water keeps rising, as well as the farmers. They're gonna be affected by the water because a lot of the farmers they farm on the low areas, so that is one of the major problems every rainy season.
Situation on the ground, the cassava is still underwater. We getting a heavy overcast, and the crops may die as long as the weather keep going on like this. When you pull out the cassava or the root, then you extract that, the water itself coming out like a spring. So the majority of the farmers around here suffering, including me.
In light of the flooding, the Civil Defense Commission, CDC, as well as the regional authorities have dispatched personnel to conduct an assessment of the impact of the flooding. This assessment, the regional chairman said, has however been slowed by the still increasing floodwaters. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Vashani Raghavir.
Police on Wednesday arrested 5 former policemen who served in senior positions within the Guyana Police Force who are accused of defrauding the state of $10,056,000. The newsroom was reliably informed that 2 former Assistant Commissioners of Police, Clinton Conway and Claude Whitaker, along with 3 former senior superintendents, Mark Gilbert, George Fraser, and Michael Sutton, were taken into custody and are expected to be charged soon. The newsroom has confirmed that the Special Organized Crime Unit SOCU conducted a probe and discovered that the 5 former policemen were paid just over $10 million to review the standing orders of the Guyana Police Force. However, it was discovered that this review was already conducted in July 2018 and completed in March 2019 by the Force's Strategic Planning Unit, which submitted its report. It is alleged that the 5 former cops submitted the same Strategic Planning Unit report as well without doing any actual work. The newsroom understands that SOCU is also looking for another assistant commissioner, who was involved in the alleged fraud. Guyana has produced the Caribbean's top performers at the 2020 Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination CAPE and at the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate CSEC examinations, and has raked in other regional awards. Vishani Raghavir has the details.
The top performer at the CAPE level was Queen's College student Zain Ramatar. He is also the best performing natural sciences student for the region. Meanwhile, fellow Queen's College student Badesh Prasad has emerged the Caribbean's top performer at CSEC and the best performing science student.
Based on Unit 1 grades back in 2019, and comparing that to past trends, like with Mr. Michael Bhopal, looking at his grades, looking at mine, I was expecting it. So it didn't really shock me. It was just like after the whole debacle with the results in year 2, then I wasn't so sure because I wasn't really aware of what was going on in the rest of the region.
Well, I'm of course grateful and happy for the results. I'm ecstatic, but of course my focus is on CAPE right now. So that's in the past, move forward.
In addition to the top awards scored by these young men, Anthony Sukra from the New Amsterdam Secondary School in Region 6, East Berbice Quarantine, has emerged the region's best technical vocational student. Nairan Siyokanandan, a student of the St. Rose's High School, is the region's best performing business student. Importantly, while announcing the local and regional top performers, the Education Minister Priya Manikchan said that the review of the grades announced by the Caribbean Examinations Council, CXC, led to many improvements in students' grades.
So these nice grades you're hearing here and what Dr. Hudson read about increases in pass rates, you would not have had that same picture if we didn't robustly advocate and represent the students at the level of CXC to get those changes. And we did that consistently and repeatedly. There were remarkable changes, numbers of changes, including some of the students you see sitting here would not have been probably in this room receiving this celebration accolade if their grades had stayed what CXC had originally given them. I am aware that some students are still upset about some of the grades that they got even in the review.
The minister also noted that the ministry will be tightening its internal system to ensure that students' school-based assessments, SBAs, are up to par, so that there is not a similar hiccup in the future. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Vishani Raghavir.
Meanwhile, we tell you now that Guyana has recorded improved pass rates at the general and technical level following the results received from CXC for the 2020 CSEC and CAPE exams.
There were 853 candidates from 15 schools, including 5 private centers, who wrote CAPE in 2020. This is according to Chief Education Officer Dr. Marcel Hudson, who was speaking at the announcement of CSEC and CAPE results on Wednesday at the National Center for Educational Resource Development, NCERD, in Kingston, Georgetown.
In 2019, we had 880 candidates, 880 candidates entries, and the subject entries included 4,223 with pass rate of 93%. In 2020, we had 853 as against 4,393 and a pass rate of 93.16%. So a slight movement compared to 2019
CAPE was a very difficult process. I didn't necessarily work in order to be a top student. I was just trying to make sure that I do better at my units for 2020. Well, I plan on taking a PUT in engineering, and I plan on attending university for fall 2022, which is next year. In the next 4 to 5 years, the oil and gas industry will be much bigger than it is right now. So taking a career path in the field as of now is just prepare myself for when it gets bigger.
In terms of exam preparation, I wasn't affected too much because COVID became realized in Guyana around March. The exam was slated for May, so by March we would have already completed all the syllabi. It was just to actually revise and prepare for the exam. So not really anything too much for me. I'm worried more about these children that learning a syllabus for the exam in 2021.
Dr. Hudson also said that of the 12,009 students who wrote the CSEC examinations, there was an increased pass rate too.
An analysis of the 2020 results revealed that the overall pass rate at the general and technical proficiency for grades 1 to 3 was 75.99%. The overall pass rate has improved from 2019, where we saw a pass rate of 73%. And this is very important because in the midst of COVID and all the drama and the issues that were working against our students, we still see they were able to show that kind of improvement, even though marginal. And I think that is commendable. So we saw improved performance was evident in 15 subjects, while it remained constant in nine subjects, and we saw a decline in 11 subjects. Outstanding performances were noted in 12 subjects where 90% and over gained acceptable grades 1 to 3. Grades 1 to 3 passes in English remained constant with pass rates of 77.91% in 2020 as against 77% in 2019. English B improved significantly from 58.1% in 2019 to 78.3% in 2020. That's some 10% improvement there. 10 or 20? Yeah, 20, yeah. A noted improvement was recorded in mathematics with a pass rate of 48.66 in 2020 as against 43 in 2019 in mathematics. The pass rate actually improved. Additional mathematics recorded a pass rate of 74.3 in 2020.
A number of other subject areas recorded increased performances, while a smaller number recorded decreased performances, according to the CEO. Reporting for the Newsroom, I am Vishani Ragvir.
When the newsroom returns, the Ministry of Agriculture signs almost $1 billion in contracts, and the Georgetown City Council proposes fines up to $500,000 or 6 months jail for littering. As Region 9 battles with increasing floodwaters and the overarching COVID-19 pandemic, Regional Chairman Brian Allicock has revealed that the region is also faced with an increased number of malaria cases. On Tuesday, he told the newsroom that more than 200 cases of malaria have been recorded for the year so far. For context, in 2020, the region recorded 954 cases. However, the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, said that the number is much higher, and there have been 349 cases of malaria recorded between January and April of this year. Seeking to combat the spread and infection of malaria, on Monday, the minister handed over 17,300 insecticide-treated mosquito nets. Most of Guyana's cases of malaria are recorded in the hinterland regions. 16 contracts totaling almost $1 billion were signed with several contractors on Wednesday for a variety of works to be carried out over the next few months at agencies across the agriculture sector. The contracts were signed in the boardroom of the Ministry of Agriculture in the presence of the subject minister, Zulfikar Mustafa. Kurt Campbell has the details.
Inclusive in 16 of the contracts signed on Wednesday for works across the agriculture sector are 8 for works at the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, NDIA. It also includes the procurement of a new SUV for the Hydromet office and other works at the National Agriculture Research and Extension Institute, NARI, and the Hope Coconut Industries Limited. There will also be the installation of geotextile tube along the foreshore at Nonpareil East Coast Demerara and a new drainage sluice constructed at New Friendship Wakenham. Minister of Agriculture Zulfikar Mustafa said the signing of the contracts will see the ministry's work program for this year being further advanced.
As we want to deliver to the Guyanese people goods and services that will enhance their life. And as a government and as a ministry, we depend on you. We depend on you who will help us to execute our program so that we can create the necessary, or we can build the necessary facilities so that we can enhance the agriculture sector in our country.
The minister implored the contractors of the need to ensure all works are executed according to the contract's specification.
I'm asking you this afternoon here, ensure that we follow all the guidelines, we follow all the protocol, and we execute the contract efficiently, effectively, and we abide with all the rules and regulations.
Mustafa claimed that since August 2020, there has been a renewed interest in agriculture, and it is for this reason that the government has increased the budgetary allocation for the sector. Speaking about the sector in a regional perspective, he said Guyana is once again taking its rightful place in the region. He told contractors that the unfortunate experiences of the past, where contracts were not completed on time and contractors reneged on the contracts, will not be tolerated. I hope we will not have those issues again, he said, even as he reassured of a range of mega projects for the sector. Kurt Campbell, Newsroom.
COVID-19 vaccination sites will soon see an extension in operating hours to 8 p.m. as the government continues to encourage persons to become vaccinated with not only the first but both doses of the vaccine. Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony said the extension of the operating hours will be done as a trial commencing on May 22nd to see if it would encourage more persons to access the vaccines which the government has made available. The health minister said that in addition to the extended hours for vaccination, work will continue at the weekends with several outreaches planned. As of Tuesday, May 18th, a total of 172,311 persons in Guyana received their first dose of one of the three vaccines being offered here, AstraZeneca, Sinopharm, and Sputnik V. Of that figure, 38,467 received both the first and second dose of the vaccine.
As soon as you realize that you've missed your date, then make sure that you come as early as possible to get your second dose. If you do that, then it should be fine. However, if you have a prolonged interval, say months after you've missed your date, then that's going to present, I think, some difficulty. The vaccine works best when you have both doses. So if you want to be fully immunized, then you need to come for your second dose. What happens with the first dose? It stimulates your immune system. Your body starts producing antibodies after about the 7th day having received the shot. About 7 days after, your body starts getting a lot of antibodies, and the level of antibodies would be high enough by the 7th day. In some of the vaccines, it goes up to 21 days. And at that point, after about for the Sputnik V and the Sinopharm at 28 days, if you give the second dose, you see the levels of antibodies would keep climbing, so that your body would really be prepared to fight off any COVID-19 exposure. If you don't come in that time frame, what normally would happen is that the antibody peaks to a level, not to its optimum, but to a level, and then remain there for a while and then would wean. If you get both doses, it goes higher and stays high for a longer time. So the response is more robust and you'll be more protected. So that's why with all of these 2-dose vaccines, we are encouraging people to make sure once they get their first dose to come back on time and get their second dose. But if you miss the date, please come as soon as possible so that we can give you that second dose.
In a sweeping move to prohibit the dumping of litter on lands, roadways, waterways, and private properties in the capital city of Georgetown, the mayor and city council is proposing a range of bylaws that will, once approved, attract hefty fines or prison time. Here's Kurt Campbell.
The new anti-littering regulations by the Georgetown Mayor and City Council propose fines for violators no less than $35,000 but not exceeding $500,000. Failure to pay the fines shall attract an additional fine of $10,000 for every 24 hours payment remains outstanding. With a clause that asks for all fines to be paid within 3 days, if payment remains outstanding after 72 hours, the violator becomes liable to imprisonment for 6 months. Mayor Ubraj Narain said these bylaws were already approved by the council and consultations will now take place with the public before final ratification by the government.
We don't want to put burden on business people or any individual, but we are putting these things in place so that people can able to adhere to rules and regulation and we can able to live in a safer environment. So look, we have to get some strict rules and regulation in our country. We are a developing country now, and in the oil and gas sector there are a lot of investors, and if these things don't come in place, we will find ourselves in trouble later on.
According to the proposed bylaws, the council will make garbage receptacles mandatory for residences and business places. Mayor Narain said if this is not in place, it can attract a fine between $10,000 to $20,000. Also, persons who urinate or defecate in open spaces in the city, drivers who allow passengers to litter from their vehicles, those who ask others to dispose of their garbage will be liable for fines.
To adjust the fine part, we want people to have garbage bin and so on at the business. You must get somewhere where you can able to place your garbage. Exactly. So those amendments has to go in now. And also you will be fined for that. If you have a business and you don't have somewhere to put your garbage, you'll be fined for it. And I think this council suggests from $10,000 to $20,000.
Already approved by the council with amendments to be made with regards to fees, the mayor said he believes it will help with the garbage situation in the city. Narain also believes the bylaws should take effect in all municipalities, but that will need to be decided by the Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, Nigel Darmlal. The mayor has called for the support from all stakeholders, particularly the private sector, as it moves to publish the proposed bylaws for 21 days for the public's input and reviews, after which amendments will need to be approved by the council before it is sent to the minister for government ratification, following which it will be gazetted and brought into effect. There is no timeline for this process. Under Chapter 28, Section 304 of the Municipals and Districts Councils Act, the City Council has the authority to prepare and approve bylaws to empower local democratic organs. Already, the Litter Enforcement Regulations of 2013 prohibits anyone from improper waste disposal, making it an offense. Enforceable by the Environmental Protection Agency EPA, persons can be charged for littering in a public place with fines between $50,000 to $100,000 or face imprisonment for 3 months. It is hardly enforced. According to the mayor, in order to address the country's garbage and associated litter issue, he has asked the government to consider a Solid Waste Act and a National Solid Waste Management System in keeping with a 2014-2015 report by the Inter-American Development Bank. Meanwhile, the council is also looking to put other policies in place. In addition to the littering bylaws, the council recently passed the pile driving policy, filming policy, and a scholarship policy. Works are ongoing on a fixed asset management policy and a donation and grant policy.
Why we put in policy in place? Because there is no policy at the level of the City Council. And I recognize that since I took office, a few was passed in 2020 and 2021 already. So these are things will able to better administration as well and better future council.
The mayor said he's also working to have an updated building bylaws and fees and fines bylaws that will stipulate that all fees and fines must come to the council instead of going to the government. Kurt Campbell, Newsroom.
When the newsroom returns, the financial, weather, and bridge reports along with sport. Welcome back to the newsroom. Now for a look at what's happening in sport, we start things off with some cricket news. Dr. Kishore Shallow, the Vice President of Cricket West Indies, says that they will explore how they can improve the criteria they use to select players for international retainer contracts. Details in this Akeem Green report.
Dr. Shallow was speaking Tuesday evening about Barbadian radio program Mason and Guess, where he responded to a question on potential tweaks in his selection criteria. CWI received widespread criticism when they announced the 18 male retained players for the 2021-2022 contractual period.
I can guarantee you that week or not, you're going to have criticism and different persons going to be sharing their opinion. So that's never going to change. Let us accept that. But I would say that we are looking at the system, the rubric for awarding grades and so on with these contracts. I expect that by next contractual period, we'll have an improved system in terms of how we award these contracts. The Director of Cricket, Jimmy Adams, myself and others have been involved in that process over the last few months. And we've been working closely with WIPA as well, who want to ensure that, we are on a level playing field, both from Cricket West Indies side and the players side. So we are looking at improving the rubric system.
So then we can confirm then, Vice President Shallow is saying that there will be changes to the criteria for the contract coming up soon. Can we quote you on that, Dr. Shallow?
You can quote that we are exploring to improve the system. And that is expected for the next contractual period.
Dr. Shallow's comments comes on the heels of those made by Chairman of Selectors, Roger Harper, who expressed hope for some changes to the current policy, but could not disclose what areas he would want to change in relation to the terms and conditions in securing the contract. A large portion of the criteria for awarding contracts means players must participate at least 50% of the matches during the period in question, along with other statistical factors in regards to average and also fitness, are also considerations that go into the selection of who is awarded an international retainer contract. The evaluation period for the 2021-2022 contracts covered performances and statistics from April 1st, 2020 to April 1st, 2021. This was also supported by statistics from the previous 2019 to 2020 evaluation period. For the newsroom, Akeem Green.
Cricket West Indies has confirmed that 13 members of the West Indies men's red ball training squad and the management have received vaccinations against COVID-19 in St. Lucia, where they are preparing for the upcoming ICC World Test Championship matches against South Africa. CWI, in partnership with the government of St. Lucia, through the support of the Ministry of Health and the Caribbean Public Health Agency, has been able to secure COVID-19 vaccines for all interested squad members. CWI has been supporting the efforts of regional governments to encourage everyone to get vaccinated against COVID-19, with the West Indies women's training squad receiving their first doses while at their training camp in Antigua last week. President of the Guyana Football Federation, Wayne Ford, has expressed concern about the long-term effects of no competitive football for developing players in Guyana. Ford stated this view in a recent interview with the Newsroom Sport about the impact COVID-19 is having on the sport locally. Since March 2020, competitive football was brought to a halt, apart from one 4-team tournament earlier this year.
Clearly, we haven't been able to play any football since March of 2020. And more I'm becoming increasingly worried about the state of our players, especially those that are in the prime years of their developmental trajectory. Not having them being able to play competitive football, being out on the training pitch every day, it is going to have a long-lasting effect on their ability to play the game. But I don't think that we are any different from other parts of the world. Even though we've seen a recent rise in the numbers here, I think that Guyana has done better than many other countries in how we've managed the pandemic. But I am increasingly worried about where this will leave us when it finally is brought under control. It is going to be brought under control. We know that. We know it's a little bit, it's going to require some digging in by the government and all stakeholders, but it's going to be brought under control. The impact has been huge. We see most of the community grounds that football was being played on now being taken over by wild animals, and well, I should say cattle mostly, and wild vegetation. We know that our match officials haven't had any game time whatsoever, our referees. We know our administrators have been dormant. So the entire football infrastructure will really need a lot of attention for you to really bring it back to anything close to where it was before we went into the state that we're in right now.
National table tennis player Chelsea Edgell is adamant that there needs to be a system in schools for the sport and the culture surrounding how persons view sport and education as opposites. Akeem Green has the details.
Edgell, who spent 2 years playing professionally in Portugal, would have been a beneficiary of numerous local tournaments in her early days. In a recent press engagement with local media, she highlighted the need to strengthen the school system and for persons to understand the value of sport.
I can only go off of what I've seen in Portugal because the school system in Guyana doesn't give room for players to seriously pursue sports. In Guyana, I think of it in this way that we compete in education, we compete in good grades, and instead of competing in sports, when educating yourself should be a matter of finding knowledge. In Portugal, what I know that they use the schools as a way to recruit players into the program. My suggestion would be when we host tournaments, in terms of school tournaments, that we use it as a stepping stone for scouting players to different clubs. And my only suggestion to the Guyana Table Tennis Association would be that when you host school tournaments, to have the clubs advertise and try to sell these players on why they should come to their club and why they should be integrated into the table tennis program and the table tennis fraternity, because that's one of the big ways in which table tennis can grow overall.
The 23-year-old would have recently participated in Olympic qualifiers for Tokyo Games. While Edgell did not make the cut, she was able to further see the gap in investment in the athletes. Clear on the need for funding, she felt a solid structure is a stepping stone in bridging the gap between Guyana and the rest of the developed world.
I think incrementally, without mentioning the notion of being more funded or just being funded in general, it would be to have a structured program in Guyana for the national athletes to ensure that they have a structure in how they train, how they practice, how they look at the game, how they view the game, how they interpret the game more specifically. Also, it would go hand in hand when having more tournaments for these players to be able to be constantly in competition. What I noticed from my time abroad in Portugal is that the league system in Portugal allows for younger players to compete with the older players, and younger players to gain some more exposure, and for older players to be able to keep fresh, try new ideas, and to be more seasoned to the idea of being in competition.
Edgell, Guyana's highest ranked female table tennis player, produced a telling performance at those Olympic qualifiers that had some pundits wondering if only there was more preparation and exposure, she could have gone the full distance and qualify for the Tokyo Olympics this year. For the Newsroom, Akeem Green.
And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thanks to our news team and technical staff. I am Fariza Hanif. Take care and remember to stay safe. Thank you for watching.